Hi, I'm Mira. I'm a multi-instrumentalist coach, and I am here to bring you to your highest timeline. So, welcome to my channel, Magifest 5D. Today, we're going to talk about sleepwalking. Yes, sleepwalking, but sleepwalking in reality, right? So, sleepwalking is something that when we think about that, we think about, oh, like when you're literally asleep and you're walking around and you stumble on things, right? But we're talking about a more subtle version of sleepwalking, right? So we're talking about conscious, unconscious or conscious sleepwalking, right? Where you're living your day to day life, but you're not actually being present, right? Because many of us are making decisions and making actions based off of our conditioning, based off of the person that we were yesterday, or the person we were 2 years ago, or even the person we were when we were 5 years old. We are making decisions based off of those things rather than making present conscious decisions. And a lot of times we don't even realize we're doing it. We don't even just like when you're sleepwalking, you don't realize that you are literally sleepwalking. You are not awake, and you think you're stumbling around, and you think you're just, I don't know, whatever you think you're doing while you're sleepwalking. You think you're doing one thing and you're not aware, and then you run into something and then you're like, whoa, oh my gosh, there is a dresser here and I just stubbed my toe and now I'm awake, right? And so let's think about, how does that manifest in reality, right? With this idea of sleepwalking, this analogy of sleepwalking in life, right? So for instance, let's say you're working your 9 to 5 job and you're just doing your routine and you do your things that you do. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, some emergency thing comes up or something comes up, and you probably had some red flags or signs that this thing was going to come up, but you weren't paying attention because you were too busy being in your 9 to 5, looking like this, like a horse with their, what they call blinders, like this, right? You were just like totally locked into whatever you were doing. So you were not looking at the whole picture. Therefore, you missed the flags, all of them, all the red flags. And then, bam, you stub your toe and it hurts. And you're like, oh man, where did that come from? And if you had your eyes open, you would have seen that, but you didn't have your eyes open. So you ran right into it, right? And a lot of times life can do that. Life can just like bring something right to you and wakes you up. And you realize, what am I doing, right? You might be in a 9 to 5 job, and then one day you just have a breakdown and you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. I'm sure there's plenty of you who can relate to this. I feel like there is definitely a epidemic of people that are realizing that they're not interested in a 9 to 5 job, or they're not interested in certain career paths, right? That's happening a lot right now. And when you have that moment, that awakening, where you realize that what you're currently doing isn't working, right? That can be a beautiful moment. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes it's also nice to have your eyes open so you can see what's in front of you so you can navigate it. Yeah? So that's what this is all about. So again, sleepwalking. How do you know? How do you know if you're sleepwalking? Let's unpack that a little bit. So one way to kind of know is, you literally might feel just kind of like, you literally might feel just bored out of your mind. You might feel like just totally tired. And actually, one sign for sure, if you're spending time on social media, you're probably asleep, because social media is made to pull you in, right? It's made for you to like be focusing so much of your attention on it. And so if you are in social media, on social media, if you find yourself on social media every day, all the time, constantly checking, that means you're not awake. That means you're allowing the forces of social media to get to you, right? Because social media, ads, TV, all of that feeds on sort of the subconscious. It feeds on the subconscious desires, the subconscious needs, the dopamine, the dopamine response. And so if you're not regulating yourself, if you're not being mindful and being present, that stuff will affect you. And you'll be just checking like all the time. You'll be looking, you'll be constantly checking your phone to see if somebody texted you back, or you'll be constantly checking your email, anxiously waiting, for whatever your boss is going to send you, and constantly on guard, like that's a sign that you are not only sleepwalking, but you're not stepping into your power. You're allowing external forces to control you and your power, right? And say you are being a slave to those external forces, where it should be the other way around, right? Or not necessarily the external forces are a slave to you, but you are the creator, right? So if you're the creator, it's not like those forces are going to control you, right? They're not going to have leverage on you, because you're creating your reality, yeah? So the thing is about this whole sleepwalking thing is that it is so sneaky. It is so sneaky. So if you think about, here's another example of thinking about it. If you dream, right? I'm sure you've dreamed. I'm sure you remember some of your dreams. And when we're dreaming, the craziest stuff could happen. Like I've had dreams before where I dreamt of being at my house, and it kind of looked like my house, but it kind of didn't look like my house, and it was kind of in the middle of a football field, and it was like so many things that were red flags that I should have like questioned, right? If I was really paying attention to my dream, I should have said, why is my house in the middle of a football field? But I didn't do that at all. You know what I did? I was like, oh, okay, cool. I guess my house is in the middle of a football field. Okay, cool. Business as usual. I didn't even question it. And that told me something about like real life. Our consciousness in real life, we're very similar. In real life, we don't even question. We just go ahead and play our little role. Oh yeah, I work at this corporate company and I've got my little, my little laptop, and I type every morning, and I get my matcha every morning, and I'm this person, right? And we don't even question it. We don't even question, why am I doing that? We don't even ask question. We don't even ask any questions. We just do. So let's talk about, how can you start to wake up in your day-to-day life? One thing you can do is ask more questions, period. Be more curious. Ask questions like, is this real? And the answer is going to be usually yes. Like your conscious mind and your rational mind is going to say, yes, this is real. This is reality. What are you talking about? But even just asking the question of like, what is real? What does that even mean for this to be real? Because when you're in a dream, it feels real to you, right? And that's a whole other video we'll have to get into, right? Like the experience of consciousness and like, what is consciousness? That'll be a heavy one. That might have to be like a 30-minute video. I feel like that's a whole other thing. But just to sort of keep it short, you can ask questions about your reality and say, well, why? Why is that happening? Why am I doing this? What am I trying to get from this? And also thinking about the ego. Again, this is another video that we could talk about. The ego versus the higher self versus, the different aspects of the self, the persona, the psyche, all that. So we could talk about that in another video because I can't do everything in one video. But if you think about the fact that there's different parts of you, different aspects of you, And each of those aspects has their own needs and desires and wants. And you, as the conscious creator of your reality, get to decide how and when those desires are fulfilled. And through your action, right, you help to fulfill those desires. Through your action, through your thoughts, through your behaviors, you fulfill those desires. So when you start to ask more questions and you ask the question of, who is this serving? Is this serving my ego? Is this serving my higher self? Is this serving my persona? Is this serving the external world? Right? When you start to ask, who is this serving? You'll start to, even just asking that question it awakens you, right, to a more present, more conscious existence, where you start to ask, why and what am I doing? Because when you're just doing it and you're asleep and you're just, because you're subconscious, and again, so many rabbit holes I really want to go down, but I'm going to stay on track here. Your subconscious mind and your conscious mind, right? They're connected, but they're on like different floors, right? Like it's almost like being in a building and you've got your lower basement and then you've got the first floor and you got the second floor, third floor, right? So it's like your subconscious mind is like the basement, right? And then your conscious mind is like the first floor. That's where all the main stuff happens, right? And then you got the third floor or the second floor, I should say, and the third floor, right? So those would be maybe your super conscious, right? Your upper spiritual part of yourself, right? And we only go upstairs for certain times, right? We spend a lot of time downstairs, right? And we might go down in the basement every now and then, but sometimes we don't want to go down in the basement because down in the basement is maybe sometimes a little scary. So sometimes we don't want to go down there, just like the subconscious. But there's all kinds of stuff down there in the subconscious, whether you like it or not. And a lot of times the subconscious is what drives your routine, is what drives your day-to-day life. The things that you're doing, the sleepwalking, that's from your subconscious. That's your subconscious doing its thing. Nothing wrong with subconscious. Subconscious is not the enemy. We shouldn't hate our subconscious. We should befriend our subconscious. We should understand our subconscious. We should give our subconscious a hug because it's a beautiful thing. It's just, unless you're aware of your subconscious, you can't really utilize it and leverage it to your own benefit, right? So that being said, when you're sleepwalking, like I said, your subconscious is running the show. So in order to get out of that, what you need to do is you first, like I said, you need to ask questions. Second, you need to start looking at your subconscious. How do you do that? Start to look at your beliefs. Start to look at, again, why am I doing what I'm doing? I feel like the questions is like a big one. Like when you start to ask questions, why am I doing what I'm doing? Who is it serving? All of these things, it's going to lead you down a rabbit hole of discovering yourself, right? Which actually brings me to my coaching cohort, Find Your Authentic Voice. We talk about that in Find Your Authentic Voice, my cohort, which will be officially out and ready. I'm going to have the first cohort in January. So we've got a little bit of time before the first cohort, but I do want to kind of put it on your mind in case you're enjoying this video right now. If you're enjoying this video, if you're enjoying me, and if you're enjoying the way that I'm explaining these things, then I think you'll really enjoy the Find Your Authentic Voice cohort session. It's an 8-week session, and what it consists of is I will be doing kind of talks like this, kind of, like lecture types of talks, but also there'll be a lot of space for questions and for discussion. So it's not just me talking at you, I promise. I definitely love to hear other people's perspectives and their thoughts and opinions as well. But then there'll also be check-ins, weekly check-ins, accountability check-ins. There'll also be like a workbook that you'll be given. So this is not just sit there and passively absorb, because I can tell you right now, even though I'm giving you this content for free, The only way that you're truly going to start to find your authentic voice is you have to do the work. And that work sometimes is really hard to do by yourself. And being able to do it in a group, being able to do it with somebody that's really holding you accountable, that's really going to help you. Because until you find your authentic voice, it's going to be very difficult to align with your true purpose and align with what you're here to do. And if you're not aligned with what you're here to do, it's going to just be hard. Everything is going to be harder for you when you're not aligned. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do the Authentic Voice as my first coaching program, because I think that this is so necessary in order to do anything else in life. So that being said, if you want to learn more about my coaching cohort, you can visit my website at www.magifest. I know a lot of people say Magifest. Magifest, like magic, MATIFEST.com. And there's a link in the description as well. But yeah, like I said, I am definitely looking for people that are interested in it. Because this is going to be my first cohort, I'm going to be heavily discounting the first cohort session. So if you want to be one of those first people that get to try it before anyone else, then definitely feel free to, you can send me a message on my website, or you can just go ahead and sign up. If you have any questions for me, you can send me a message through my website. I also have an Instagram page for my music, Mira Raven, or Mira Raven Music. And you can also send me a DM on there as well, if you'd like. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, midday, whatever time you're watching this. And I'll see you next time. Until then, keep manifesting.